Hi, welcome back. This is the Restoration Couple channel, Joe and Tim, and this is going to be our kitchen transformation video. So we did a 14-15 part series on it. But this one is just going to be showing you start to finish in one video. So it's going to be quite hard to judge the old photo because there's so much change in this room. Some of it is behind the camera and we'll show that from a different angle. But I'll let you kind of do the rough, what it used to look like. It's on my phone actually.
Yeah, no, I was just having a look. So basically on that side there was all wall panelling. Over by the window there were lovely orange cabinets that were from about here all the way along.
All the way to the ceiling as well, 3 metre ceiling. Do you remember there was that hot bank up there?
Yeah. It was very good for storage. There was a boiler here and space for a little tiny table here, but not very much space at all to move around if you had the table in here, like we did. Because that what we now use as a dining room was our sitting room because we were trying to section off the house. So we were living in this half and renovating that half, and then we swapped over.
I mean, we pretty much doubled the size of the kitchen, wouldn't you say, in the renovation?
Yeah, because there was a corridor.
So behind the camera, we'll show you from the next angle, there was a corridor, so we gained an extra maybe 2 by 3 metre space there. We took down this supporting solid wall here, which was brick. There was, at some point in the history of the house, there was a door here, but there was just a little hatch, wasn't there?
Yeah, in fact, I think in the history of the house, there was a corridor down here, which had a door into both rooms.
From the hallway through.
That was never here when we moved in. There wasn't even.
So the kitchen used to be, originally in Victorian time, it would have been a wall here and a wall where the camera is, so it's very small. This has gone before. We then knocked down this wall. But the problem is when you take down all these walls, you lose cupboard unit space. You can't. There's got no walls to hang stuff on. So that's why we had this kind of steel frame engineered. And I bolted it up into the beam, concreted it down into the floor, which gave out this kind of floating peninsula. There's nothing hanging, no pillars. It was kind of a feature I kind of came up with, and I quite like the idea of kind of passing the food through a bit like a restaurant.
His whole chefing coming in.
Yeah. So, and that's why we kind of had the dining room there. It kind of flowed that way. Yeah, the old boiler was an old oil boiler, 40, 50 years old. That came out, and as you might know, we switched to biomass wood pellets, which is all out there, isn't it? So there's nothing in the house at all now, which is quite nice. And then we put in this range, which was kind of like our luxury part of the kitchen, with an induction hob. And then had an extractor in here, which we ducted out through the wall. There's still things to finish, lots of things to finish in the kitchen, isn't there?
Yeah, because we did so much in here, because we knocked down 2 big walls, it meant that then, there's going to be lots to finish, pipes to fit in and cracks to cover up again and all sorts, but we won't pull them all out, otherwise that's all you'll look at. But.
So, we do need to tile the back here. There's a little bit of granite to go in there, and all the pipe work and the power and everything for all the heating systems runs in a trunk kind of cupboard here. That needs to be tidied up with some panelling. But apart from that, if you'd watched the kitchen series, you'd know we bought this whole kitchen second-hand, solid oak, pippy oak, and we basically bought all the units.
And all the granite.
And all the granite came with it, and the sink and the taps. So it came out of another kitchen, and we then had all these parts of a jigsaw puzzle to kind of work out how it would fit in our space. And that's exactly what we did. We've still got a few spare units left over. I think we've got 4 or 5 units.
Of what? Oh yes, yeah.
To do a utility in the future. Yeah. And we had an 800 unit spare which we made into an island, which, although it's not on wheels or anything, we can't move it, it can be moved if needs be.
That was a toy. We weren't sure about getting this or putting this in because it is nice to have it in such an open plan, and I always worried about having enough room to get round the island and whatnot. But actually, it's a huge storage unit for us. It's got full pull-out drawers,
and
it's really handy because the pans are in there, which can just go straight on the hob. And actually, otherwise you're having to go quite away across the room to get those things.
Yeah.
It's the practicalities.
There are things we probably do differently now, but the problem is when you design a kitchen, unless you've already been living there for several years, you're never going to get it quite right.
What would you do differently?
I'd probably, I'm not sure if I'd have the island, or not such a permanent island, maybe one that we could move around a bit more, or instead bring it off as a peninsula off that granite over there.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd potentially, we've kind of come back to this, we'd swap the kitchen to the dining room. So we'd have the kitchen up that end, up to about here, still take down that wall, maybe have an island unit in the middle here so you can walk down. That would have meant that we could have had a big dining room down here.
We could have had a fire in here.
Yeah.
And the dining room would have looked out on the garden, and it would have been more, I think, more homely, more cottagey. But we were worried about moving all the pipes and everything from the
In hindsight, it wasn't such a big job.
Well,
we would have ended up with quite a galley kitchen.
No.
But anyway, that's how we are. And,
It's done.
You know, 10, 15 years down the line, we could move things around. It's not that hard a job. And then heating-wise, in here we have 3 radiators. This house just eats up heat.
And there were
it loses heat.
There were a lot of radiators here before because we knocked down walls. Also, that means that you knock down potential spaces for radiators.
Yeah.
And there were quite a few big, not great radiators, but they were good sized radiators for the rooms. So that was. But we've got one, and we've got underfloor heating now.
Yeah. So
as you've seen,
the underfloor heating was kind of the main part of this. Well, the start of this project, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We didn't want to pour a screed and do a wet underfloor heating system in that it would take longer to dry, but also we couldn't afford to lose that much height. If we were going to do it that way, we would have had to put the insulation down, then the pipe work, and then probably a 2 or 3 inch screed. Whereas this route, we did a floating floor, so we used preformed panels, put the pipe work in on metal spreader plates, and then we used a concrete screed board rather than poured, which worked really well. Okay, so from this angle you can see where the wall used to be. If I move to this side, I can put a split screen in. So there used to be a whole bank of units on this wall and a concrete wall, which was put in, wasn't original, it was put in the 50s or 60s. So we just took it out again. It was concrete, but there was a gap above it, and it had a doorway here. So that came out, and then this is what we've ended up with now. So everything continues through on exactly the same level floor. The side of this island is basically where the old wall was. Beyond that, there was a panelled wall with some cupboards and a full height door which led down to the cellar. It all just seemed like a bit of a waste of workspace, because kitchen workspace is kind of real estate, isn't it? You kind of want as much as you can get, and that's where we were going to have all the kind of tea and coffee, toast, drinks, all that sort of stuff over there. So that's where we did that funky sort of hidden cellar door jobby, and it worked pretty well. So it's just kind of it's almost created a square kitchen and gained a lot of space. We did keep the structure of this end, and we inset our fridge into there. The fuse box and consumer unit and everything is up there as well. There are lots of things to finish in here as well. There's kind of doors to make for the pull-out units there. Pipe work at the top. We just finished an ensuite in our bedroom, which was a 3-year project. And I brought the waste pipe along here rather than going through joists or anything like that. So that needs to be boxed in up there. We might put a cornicing around this room as well. Anything else from this angle? Obviously the sink went in. The sink was originally here anyway, kind of a metal sink, but we put in this Belfast type butler sink, and another window obviously replaced there. Now the whole floor came up by, we had 50mm of insulation board with the pipework inside that, and then we used 22mm concrete screed boards, which are like a tongue and groove floorboard, but they're made from a kind of almost like hardy backer, like a solid screed, very heavy, but they work really well with the underfloor heating. We turn the underfloor heating on, it comes through pretty quick, but it also holds more heat than it would if we'd used, you know, a normal wooden floor over the top. So, little look at the island. The island's just an 800mm unit with 2 full pull-out drawers, one for plastics, that Tupperware stuff, and one for pans. And then there was a couple of boards in here as well from the original kitchen. That was just kind of how they had it designed. And then obviously we had to get all the granite that came with this second-hand kitchen, we had to get it cut and fit. So everything in this room we did ourselves, apart from the granite, which we took over to a fitters, or they collected it, cut it to size, and they did the fit as well. And that was the biggest expense in the whole kitchen, I think. Okay, favourite part of the kitchen? Of the project?
What, putting it in, or favourite part?
Favourite, well, the thing you're most glad we did.
Pull out cupboards in the lava. I love them.
Yeah, that happened. That's kind of a year.
My birthday present last year.
Well, it was a year and a half later, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But not a year and a half later, but a year and a half after the kitchen was finished. Yeah, we put in some drawers in here.
But it's so handy, and they use the space so much better. It's so deep that you just can't get to anything.
Yeah, so
what you've got.
For a year we lived with full depth cupboards and stuff just got lost at the back there.
Yeah. In fact, if I was doing it again, I would have more drawers for all of our things. I just think it means you can see everything clearer, you can sort everything better.
This cupboard here, I think we're going to put a pull-out bin there because it's just not really used for much, and the bin has to sit over there. And one thing you want to avoid is having a bin sat on underfloor heating.
Yeah.
It's not very nice. So, you know, we haven't got any underfloor heating under the unit, so if we put a pull-out here, it's going to remain cool or at room temperature. It's not going to be cooked from the bottom. So this is a view that I don't have any photos of because it simply didn't exist before. The concrete wall came out here, you can see the end of it there, and there was a single door. And then, I don't even think we took any photos of this, but we had tongue and groove panelling, floor to ceiling, all the way up here, with cupboards, in a bank of kind of cupboards here, with a full height door here, which led down to the cellar. And originally we had this really dark, tight corridor. But even after we took down this wall, you still had these cupboards which weren't that useful. They were really deep, they're nearly 1 metre deep. They were also far too high as well. So we wanted to open it up a bit, tie it in with the rest of the kitchen. And that's why we came up with this design here. So we've got a normal kind of family fridge, a little bit too small. I think in the future we might end up taking these 2 little pull-outs out and just getting a slightly wider fridge freezer. Back door, we've still got to kind of restore that really. We're going to strip it, paint it, and potentially fit some double glazed units into there. But it's nice to keep the original one. We also had to cut off about 2 or 3 inches off the bottom of that to allow for the raise in the floor height. This threshold just about, you know, the lintel just about allows for that. In some projects, in some properties, that might restrict what you can do because you don't want to have to duck under like a hobbit. So we had 3 units up there, the little wine rack over there, which we had to put in just to simply make up the space. So the bit I want to show you now is just the whole cellar setup. This is another part which isn't quite finished, but it's not far off. We need to put some shelving over here just to make sure that this always remains free. But if I take that box off, so over here we did oak, so it's a little bit different from the rest of the kitchen, but it was the only way we could build the secret entrance to the cellar. And the whole idea was that we gained all this worktop by taking out all the panelling, which is probably the most used part of our kitchen. And rather than having that full height door there, which was a bit of a waste really because you're not going down to the cellar that often. Perhaps they would have originally because that's where the coal was kept. But for us, we just were able to lift this up. I'm going to build some pneumatic sort of stays like you have on a cupboard sometimes, or a car boot, which will hold that up. But for the time being, There's just a little prop here which holds it up. And then the panelling which I built just using a router, and this is MDF. I've put a join on one of those grooves, so if you then open at the back, this bit hinges in, and then there's steps that go down into the cellar. So that's kind of our little James Bond part of the kitchen, and there's still bits of snagging and stuff to finish there, and we haven't really touched the cellar apart from insulating the ceiling of it for the lounge. That's a whole different project down there, potential man cave space. The last view of the kitchen is this view here, which shows the stained glass window up in the top corner here, which we got from a reclamation yard. I think it was out of an old pub. We just put that in, just a bit of a feature really, just such high ceilings you end up with quite a bit of blank wall above the doors, so put that in. Again, still a little bit of paint work to do to that, and a new doorway that we built in here with some stud work above, and the knife rack, which is a project video in itself. That was kind of another little project we did later on after we built the kitchen. So that is our kitchen transformation from start to finish. If you want to see all the detail of how we did it, the underfloor heating, the plastering, the strip out, putting the steel in, building the panelling, building the secret entrance for the cellar, fitting the cupboards, the units, the corner sink, there's a whole playlist on that on our channel, and I'm going to link to that in the description box below. There's also the knife project, which was a little woodworking project, and the shelves up in that corner, which have their own little standalone videos. There's probably a load of other footage already on the channel with more detail, but if you do have any questions on anything in this room, let us know in the description box below, and either Joe or I will answer that. But that's it. So next room I think we're going to do is the dining room. It's probably a much shorter video, but you can look forward to that one. Okay, so thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.